皆さんはどんなストレスを抱えていますか？どんな状況でストレスを感じますか？ぜひシェアしてくださる方がいたらお願いします。はい、チャットに書いていただいても結構です。
Thank you. So before presentation, yeah, when I do not have enough time, when you have a lot of homework, I apologize, I cannot read the Japanese, but Professor can translate a bit. So a lot. Okay, great. Thank you so much. When something bad happens that I didn't anticipate, oh, wonderful. Social conflict, relationships, excellent. So many different.
Yeah, there are many tasks to do when I have to ride a packed train, personal relationships. Yeah.
Packed train also, what a good example. When somebody prevent what I was concentrating on. Wonderful, yes. The things don't go well. What you do, it doesn't go well. Meeting someone for the first time or doing a new job. Also, excellent example. Tight schedule. Yes, seniority system. Multiple tasks, multitasking, doing so many things. Excellent. Ambiguity increases. Okay, wonderful. So these are great examples. Thank you so much, everyone. Right? I mean, so that also tells us what stress is for and how it comes about, right? If we see, So stress is really an evolved response to a stressor, right? There's a stressor. It could be a tight, from an evolutionary perspective, what would be a typical stressor? It's something like a danger, right? A predator, somebody who's trying to hunt you, right? Or something like that. Some danger, physical danger, right? And that is, evolution has evolved the stress response to meet that challenge, to respond to that challenge. Hiro, maybe translate.
Thank you. Yeah, so ストレスというのは、ストレスの原因、要因に対する反応であって、進化論的な話をすると、デンジャー、危険ですね。危険を察知して、それに対して、ストレスを感じて、それに反応していくとか、そんな風な進化論的な背景があります。
And even though we, human species, we're now at the very top of the food chain in the natural environment, we managed to create a lot of stressors ourselves in a way and through our society and way of living.
で今人間は種としては自然環境の中で食物連鎖の中でトップに立ってますけど、それでも我々は社会の中に様々なあらゆるストレスの原因となるものを作り出しています。
So originally again, so the stress is there, the stress response, it's the sympathetic nervous system, it's mobilized, it's activated to respond to something in a specific situation, which is generally adaptive. But it is meant as a short-term acute response strategy. It is not meant to be chronically or constant on 24/7 like our smartphones, right? Our internet. It's for when the danger happens, we need to run away or something, and then afterward it's supposed to be deactivated.
で、このストレスから来る環境への反応っていうのは短期的には適応しているものです。ただ短期的ではないスパンでストレス反応が続いてしまうと、でもそのストレス反応のスイッチが入ったままになってしまうと、状態が悪くなっていく。
So I think it's important to realize also for the stress management that there's nothing wrong with stress as such, right? It is about when we become chronically stressed and also when we think of too many things as stressors, things that stress us, right? And then we have the stress response too often and not enough time to recover.
でストレス自体は悪くないものです。悪ではありません。ただそのストレスが長期的に長引いたり、あるいはストレスの原因となるものがたくさんありすぎる。そういう状態になったとき、我々は自分たちを癒す時間がなくて困難な状況になってしまいます。
And then we get a lot of negative consequences of chronic stress because when the system is constantly activated, it deteriorates. It's being used up too much. Right? We know a lot of negative consequences of chronic stress.
で、その長期的なストレスっていうのは、悪い影響が出てくると。その常にストレスに反応するシステムのスイッチが入ったままだと、我々は時間をかけて徐々に疲弊していく、疲れていってしまいます。
So we talked already a bit about when you shared, when do you feel stress? You talked about the causes of stress. And these we call stressors. Stressors are that which causes stress. Right? And then when you look at the examples that you shared, and also when I think about my own life, right? I mean, there's some commonalities in these, so many different examples, but some commonalities. The stressors are typically some kind of a challenge, some kind of a danger, some sense where the resources that we have do not match the demands, right? So some of you mentioned deadline, too many things to do. That means the resource of time or mental energy is not enough for everything that we want to do. And then we feel also a lack of control. Some of you mentioned things about uncertainty or too many people in a train, right? That's partly we're packed, could be dangerous, but also we're not in control of our environment. And that's related then to uncertainty also. When we don't have control, there's also uncertainty, right? Some of you mentioned that as well, the future, uncertainty about the future, seniority system, and so on. Right? So, and some others I think, right? Can we get it done in time? Ambiguity when it doesn't go as planned. All these things are related to uncertainty. So you see the commonalities there, I think.
で先ほど皆さんにストレスのことを聞いたんですけれども、多くはストレッサー、つまりストレスを作り出す原因ですよね。危険ってこともあれば、例えばさっき締め切りの話をされた方もいて、その締め切りに対して時間が足りない、リソース、時間というリソースが足りない、メンタルエナジーという、リソースが足りない、そういうミスマッチから起きること。あとは満員電車の例もありましたけど、自分がコントロールできないことによってストレスを感じる。で、そのやっぱりコントロールできないってことは、アンサートンティ、不確性、から来るストレスにも関係している。
Now, here is something that is really important, I think, for us modern people, right? It's that the stressors in the past, they were mostly external, but they can also be internal for human beings in particular, not so much for other animals, but humans. We create internal stressors in the form of our thoughts and also maladaptive behaviors, right? We're thinking that can stress us. Oh my gosh, I cannot get this done in time, right? Oh my gosh, what the future, it will be bad in some sorts. I will not get a job, or I might lose my job. Thoughts like that. And also sometimes maladaptive behaviors. We're taking on too many jobs, too many tasks, for example, and then we get stressed. So we humans have developed amazing ability to create stressors that you don't see in other animals so much, right? So, and that creates what we can also call a double arrow. Sometimes there can be external stressor, such as concern about your job or crowded train, but then we add internal stressors sometimes about it by how we think about it and by stressing out about it mentally. So in a way, we sometimes add the suffering internally to the pain that existing already, right? So we might have a pain and an injury in the body. I injured my leg, for example, a little bit. And then I can add suffering because I worry now. Will it heal? When will it heal? Oh my gosh, I'm getting old. So I'm adding a lot of suffering mentally.
で、ストレスストレスの原因となるものは、外的なものだけではなく、我々の内側にあるということもよくあります。特に人間は考える、自分の考えということから、よくストレスを受けることがあります。あるいは、たくさんの仕事を引き受けてしまうっていう、ある意味不適応な対応をしてしまうとか。で、これに関しては、よく WRO、二つの矢の例えが使われるんですけれども、一つ目の矢っていうのは外界から来るストレスさ。ペイン、痛み、怪我とか、例えばあるとしたら、それにいろんなことを頭の中でくっつけて、苦しみ、サッファリング。つまり、外からやってくるストレスと、それに対する自分の反応としてさらにストレスをくっつけてしまうという、この二つのストレスっていうのが、人間にはあります。
Yeah. So I think you all can relate to that, right? This is very common tendency we have. So in the MBSAT that I mentioned, the mindfulness-based strategic awareness training, right? We put it like this. This is the first error and this is the second error. So in the first error, something can happen. Maybe you lose a job, for example, or you get a bad diagnosis of a health problem or something, or you get divorced from the partner, which creates some kind of uncertainty and which creates stressful, worrying thoughts, right? Partly because we feel powerless. We don't have the resources to cope with it. And it's partly because we didn't predict something accurately how things would be going. We thought we would keep the job, but then we lose the job, right? For example, right? But then in addition to this first error, which is more like an external stressor, we often create a second error also because we have what they call here mental proliferation. We think a lot about it. We worry a lot about it. We have a lot of rumination going on, right? And which increases the negative feeling, oftentimes increases emotion, also anxiety. We feel anxious. And so we're adding the second loop.
で、これは我々の MBSAT、Mindfulness Based Strategic Awareness Training ですね。マインドフルネスに基づく戦略的意識のトレーニングのプログラムで使う絵なんですけれども、ここにあるように、一つ目の矢。それは、離婚してしまったとか、本当はもっと働きたかったのに仕事を失ってしまったとか、そういう外的なストレスの要因ということが多いんですけれども、それが外的なストレスの要因があるのに加えて、この二つ目の矢、それに対して、ネガティブな感情を持ったりもいろいろ心配して、してしまったりして、さらにその苦しみをくっつけていってしまうことがあり、この二つの矢というのは、この人間の感じるストレスを理解するのにはいい絵です。
And of course, just because we practice mindfulness, we cannot control the first error oftentimes, right? Because we don't become all-powerful human beings just because we do mindfulness. But we can have more influence over the second error, the second loop, our own thoughts.
で、マインドフルネスの練習をしていっても、一つ目の矢、上のサークルですね、が消えることはあまりないと言ってもいいでしょう。我々は、全知全能の神ではないので。でも、マインドフルネスの練習をすることによって、二つ目の矢、この二つ目のストレスのサイクルというのに介入することはできます。
Thank you. Okay, so now one more question before we move towards the practice. How do you feel stress, you guys? Right? How do you, when you feel stress, how do you feel it? Where do you feel it? What do you feel like, say, in your body, for example, or emotionally? How would you describe your experience of stress?
で、ここに皆さんに一つ質問を投げかけたいんですけれども、皆さんがストレスを感じるときはどんな風に感じますか？例えば体のどこの部分がどう感じるとか、どんな感情を感じるとか、何でもいいんですけれども、ストレスの感じ方、どんな風にストレスが体とか思考とかに出てくるかっていうのを教えてください。
Okay. Oh, a lot of that. Headache, pain in the neck, insomnia, stiff back, unclear feeling in my body, irritated, have a headache, lose motivation to take action, headache, wonderful. Many examples.
And, increased heaviness, increased fatigue, feeling pressure in the chest.
Lack of energy, negative thinking, tightness. Wonderful. Oh, so thank you for giving so many good examples. Here's another model in the MBSAT. We call it the beta. So if you think of what your examples, they fit a lot into these 4 different dimensions of our inner experience. Some of it in the body sensation. There's stiff shoulder, for example, right? Some of them are emotional, crying, feeling down, feeling anxious. Some of them are more thoughts, more negative thinking, you mentioned, for example, right? And some of them are action impulses. So, for example, no energy to do something, not feeling like doing anything, a lack of action, motivation, no motivation. So these are a lot of the ways we experience stress in these 4 different dimensions internally. And then some of the consequences are like we don't sleep well, for example.
で、この図もMBSAT、マインドフルネスに基づいた戦略的思考トレーニングのその使う図なんですけれども、我々はこれをベータと呼んでいます。BETA の頭文字を取って。で、大体我々のストレスっていうのはこの4つの要素で出てくることが多いです。まずはボディセンセーションズ、体の感覚ですね。例えばですが、体重、体全体が重くなるとか。で、次はイモーション。感情ですね。で、次が thoughts。思考ですね。ネガティブなことしか考えられなくなるとか。で、最後はアクションインパルス。行動に向かう、ちょっと衝動みたいなものですね。で、こういうふうに、この4つの要素で、大体ストレスが出てきて、で、これが、結果として、例えば、インソムニア、睡眠、不眠になってしまったり、睡眠障害になってしまったりすることとかがあります。
Yeah. That we can observe with mindfulness also, right? That's where mindfulness comes in, right? Mindfulness, which can be defined as paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally.
で、このようなストレスを扱っていくところで、やはりマインドフルネスが重要な役割を持ってくる。で、定義としては、ある特定の方法で、意図を持って、この今現在の瞬間において、ジャッジをせずに注意を向けるというのがマインドフルネスの定義です。
And which we practice with certain attitude, which like this, like letting go, kindness, and so on. And this is important because remember the second arrow. When we practice mindfulness and we're very goal-directed, we want to achieve a lot of outcome, or we blame ourselves for not relaxing, then we're actually adding more stress. It's the second arrow, right? So then mindfulness becomes a stressful activity. So we practice with these attitudes of mindfulness.
で、ここにスライドに見せているのが、マインドフルネスの練習をする際に、とても重要な姿勢です。で、それはなぜかというと、マインドフルネスを目的にしてしまって、マインドフルになろうとすると、それがストレスを作ってしまう。つまり、マインドフルネスの練習自体が2つ目の矢になってしまう。それを防ぐためにこういう態度が必要です。
Okay, right. So again, so these are the 2 things we want to do: reduce stress and prevent stress. So now we're going to do an exercise from the MBSAT or combination that we'll do, and that will have 2 components. First, we will do the first part is about reducing stress. To reduce stress, we'll first become aware of the stress in the beta, self-awareness, catching the beta, the stress in the beta, and then calming the beta. So that is stress reduction.
で、ストレスマネジメントの2つの、要素、ストレスリダクションと、ストレスプリベンションなんですけれども、まずはこの MBSAT、マインドフルネスに基づいた戦略的意識トレーニングのベータの練習で、まずはストレスリダクション、ストレスの減少に関する練習をしたいと思います。ストレスを減少することによって、自分たちのマインドを穏やかに沈める、そういう練習です。
And after that, in the practice, we'll continue on and we'll do something which in the MBSAT is called irimi. It's from Aikido. So in a Japanese context, you might be familiar with this perhaps. We will try to investigate why we're getting stressed. So we'll try to gain some insights, maybe about our pattern of responding to a situation, maybe about some kind of negative appraisal of a situation. And by becoming more aware of these kind of thought patterns and beliefs, that can help us to prevent getting stressed in the first place.
で、2つ目の練習が、この日本の合気道の原理、入身というものに、思想に基づいた練習で、これはストレスプリベンション、ストレス予防の要素を持っているんですけれども、この練習では自分たちにストレスを起こしている要因に近づいていく。そのストレスの要因に自分がくっつけている思考とか感情とかを見て、理解していく。そのことで、ストレスの予防につなげていくという練習です。
Okay, so let's let me see, can I make this right? So let's practice.